You wake up in complete darkness. Your eyes flutter open, but something's wrong. The air feels thick, choking. You try to breathe and immediately start coughing. Your lungs burn. The smell is overwhelming. A toxic mixture of coal smoke, raw sewage, rotting garbage, and something else you can't quite identify. Something dead, maybe. You're not in your bed. You're lying on a pile of straw that's crawling with things. You feel them moving across your skin. Lice, fleas, maybe worse. Your clothes, if you can call them that, are rough, scratchy, and smell like they haven't been washed in months, because they haven't. Welcome to London, 1850. You know that romantic Victorian era you've seen in movies? The one with the fancy dresses and distinguished gentlemen? Yeah, forget all that. You're not a gentleman. You're not wearing a fancy dress. You're a factory worker. And your life is about to become a living nightmare. But here's the thing. This isn't just about Victorian London. We're going on a journey through several different time periods, and I can guarantee you wouldn't survive a single day in any of them. Not because you're weak, not because you're not smart, but because modern life has made you soft in ways you can't even imagine. You think you could handle it? You think you're tough enough? Let's find out, because by the end of this video, you're going to realize just how good you have it, and how quickly you'd die without your smartphone, your indoor plumbing, and your antibiotics. Let's begin your suffering. Part 1. Industrial Revolution, London, 1850. Chapter 1. Your first morning in hell. The first thing that hits you when you stumble out of your one-room tenement is the smell. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it's the worst thing you've ever experienced. Modern sewage treatment plants have shielded you from understanding what raw human waste actually smells like when it's just everywhere. The Thames River, which you can see from your street, isn't a river anymore. It's an open sewer. 2.5 million people are dumping their waste into it daily. There's no plumbing in your building. There's a communal privy in the yard that's shared by 40 families. It's just a hole in the ground connected to a cesspit that gets emptied maybe once a month if you're lucky. But you can't think about that now because you're already late for work. The factory bell rang 20 minutes ago, and if you're late, you don't get paid for the entire day. Worse, you might get fired, and then you and your family starve. So you run. Your shoes, if you can call them that, are falling apart. They're not really shoes, more like leather scraps tied around your feet. Every step on the cobblestones hurts. Your feet are already covered in blisters and sores that never quite heal because they're constantly exposed to the filth of the streets. The streets themselves are a nightmare. Horse manure everywhere. We're talking literal tons of it. London has over 300,000 horses, and each one produces about 15 to 35 pounds of manure per day. Do the math, that's millions of pounds of horse crap covering the streets, mixing with mud, human waste, and rotting garbage. You dodge between carts and carriages, narrowly avoiding being trampled. There are no traffic lights, no crosswalks, no rules really. It's chaos. A horse-drawn omnibus nearly runs you over, and the driver screams obscenities at you that would make a modern sailor blush. You finally reach the factory. It's a massive brick building, blackened by coal smoke, with hundreds of broken and dirty windows. The noise hits you before you even get inside. A deafening roar of machinery, metal on metal, steam engines hissing and clanking. It never stops. It's been running 24 hours a day, and it'll keep running until something breaks. You rush through the door, and immediately a supervisor grabs you by the collar. "You're late," he screams in your face. His breath is horrible. Rotting teeth, gin, and tobacco. That's a shilling off your wages. A shilling is half your daily pay. You just lost half a day's wages for being 20 minutes late, but you can't argue. If you argue, you're fired. So you just nod and hurry to your station. Chapter 2. The Factory Floor. Your job is simple. You stand at a machine for the next 14 hours and feed it. The machine is a textile loom, and your job is to tie together threads when they break. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. The machine never stops. It's moving at high speed, and if you're not careful, it'll take your fingers off. Actually, it'll probably take your fingers off anyway. Look around the factory floor. Half the workers are missing digits. Some are missing entire hands. There's a kid, can't be more than 8 years old, with a mangled arm wrapped in a filthy bandage. He's still working. He has to. If he stops, his family doesn't eat. The noise is unbearable. You're trying to shout to the team person next to you, but you can't hear your own voice. The air is thick with cotton dust and coal smoke. Within an hour, you're coughing constantly. Your throat feels like you've been swallowing sandpaper. Your eyes are burning. The temperature is oppressive. The factory needs to be hot and humid for the cotton to process properly, so it's kept at about 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity. There's no ventilation, no fans, no brakes. The windows are kept closed to maintain the humidity. You're sweating through your clothes within minutes, but you can't drink water. There is no water. Well, there's water. The same water from the Thames that's contaminated with cholera, typhoid, and dysentery. You'll drink it later because you'll have to, and you'll probably get sick. But for now, you just suffer from thirst. An hour passes, then 2. Your legs are aching. You're not allowed to sit, ever. Sitting means you're not working. Your feet are screaming in pain from standing on the hard stone floor. Your back is starting to spasm. Then it happens. The worker next to you, a woman in her 30s who looks 60, doesn't move her hand fast enough. The machine catches her fingers. You hear the crunch before you hear her scream. Blood sprays across your face and clothes. She's on the ground clutching her hand, or what's left of it. 2 fingers are just gone. The supervisor walks over, looks at her with complete indifference, and yells, "Get her out of here," and someone clean that up. We're losing production. 2 other workers drag her away. You never see her again. Someone else takes her spot within 5 minutes. The machine never stops. You're still standing there with her blood drying on your face, and you're expected to just keep working. Welcome to workplace safety in 1850. Chapter 3. The lunch that isn't 6 hours in, you get a break, 30 minutes. This is your only break in a 14-hour shift. You stumble outside into the marginally fresher air and join the crowd of workers sitting on the filthy ground. You reach into your pocket for your lunch. It's a chunk of bread. Hard, stale, possibly moldy. That's it. No sandwich, no snacks, just bread. If you're lucky, you might have a bit of cheese or a raw onion. Today, you're not lucky. The bread tastes like sawdust, and you struggle to choke it down without water. Your throat is so dry and sore from the cotton dust that swallowing is painful. But you force it down because this is all the food you'll get until you finish your shift tonight. Around you, other workers are eating similar meals. Some have nothing at all. There's a group of children, child laborers, who are sharing a single potato between 5 of them. A raw potato. They're eating it like an apple. You notice that almost everyone looks sick, pale, gaunt, hollow-eyed. The woman next to you is coughing up blood into a rag. She notices you staring and just shrugs. Consumption, she says matter-of-factly. Tuberculosis, it's rampant in the factories. The combination of poor nutrition, terrible air quality, and crowded conditions means TB spreads like wildfire. She'll be dead within a year. She probably knows it. Everyone knows it. But what choice does she have? Stop working and starve now, or keep working and die slowly. She's chosen slowly. You look at your hands. They're already cut and bleeding from the machinery. The cuts are getting infected. You can see the red streaks spreading up your fingers. In the modern world, you'd put some antibiotic ointment on that and slap on a Band-Aid. Here, you've got nothing. If the infection gets bad enough, you'll lose the finger, or the hand, or you'll die of sepsis. It's just luck at that point. The 30 minutes end far too quickly. A whistle blows, and everyone struggles to their feet and shuffles back inside. You've got 8 more hours to go. Chapter 4. The Afternoon Nightmare. Hour 7. You're hitting a wall. Your body is screaming at you to stop. Every muscle aches. Your hands are shaking from fatigue and pain. You're so thirsty you're starting to feel delirious. The heat and humidity are making you dizzy. You make a mistake. Your exhausted fingers fumble, and a thread doesn't catch properly. The supervisor sees it immediately. He storms over and, without warning, strikes you across the face with his cane. Hard, you taste blood. "Pay attention, you worthless sack of shit," he screams. That's another shilling off your wages for damaged product. You're now down to basically nothing for today's pay. But you can't leave. You have to finish the shift, or you get nothing at all. So you keep working, blood trickling from your split lip. Hour 9. A child, maybe 10 years old, collapses from heat exhaustion. They drag him outside and dump a bucket of filthy water on him. If he wakes up, he can come back to work. If he doesn't, well, there are plenty more where he came from. Hour 11. You're working on pure survival instinct now. Your brain has basically shut down. You're just a machine yourself, going through the motions. Grab thread, tie thread, feed machine. Repeat. Grab thread, tie thread, feed machine. Repeat. The worker across from you hasn't moved in a while. You think he might be dead. He's standing up, but he's just not moving. Someone eventually notices and checks on him. Nope, not dead, he's sleep standing. His body is so exhausted that he's literally fallen asleep while standing at his station. The supervisor hits him with the cane to wake him up. Hour 13. You've given up on the concept of time. Has it been 13 hours, 13 days, 13 years? You can't remember what it felt like to not be in pain. Was there ever a time when your feet didn't hurt, when you could breathe without coughing? It seems impossible. Finally, the end of shift whistle blows. You've made it. 14 hours. You're done. Except you're not done. You still have to walk home. Chapter 5. The journey home. You stumble out of the factory into the evening darkness. It's November, so it gets dark early. The streets are lit by gas lamps, but they're few and far between, creating pools of dim yellow light in an ocean of darkness. The fog has rolled in. Not regular fog. This is a London particular, a pea zooper. It's fog mixed with coal smoke, creating a toxic yellow-brown soup that you can barely see through. It gets into your lungs and makes you cough even harder than the cotton dust did. You're not alone on the streets. Thousands of workers are pouring out of factories across the city, but you're not safe in numbers. London in 1850 is incredibly dangerous after dark. There are no police to speak of. The Metropolitan Police exists, but there are only about 5,000 of them for a city of 2.5 million people. You keep to the main streets and walk quickly. You pass a pub, and the smell of gin wafts out. It's tempting. Gin is cheaper than beer, and it would dull the pain for a while, but you can't afford it. You've lost most of today's wages to fines. A group of men emerges from an alley. Your heart races. Mugging is common. Murder is common. Body snatching is common. There's a thriving market for fresh corpses to sell to medical schools, and the easiest way to get a fresh corpse is to make one. You walk faster, they don't follow. This time, you finally reach your tenement building. It's a 5-story structure that was built to house maybe 50 people, but currently houses about 300. There's no running water, no heat, no sanitation beyond that overflowing cesspit in the yard. You climb the stairs, there's no elevator obviously, to the 4th floor. The stairwell is pitch black and smells like urine. You feel your way along the wall, which is damp with condensation and probably mold. You reach your room. It's a single room, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. This is where your entire family lives. You, your wife, and your 4 children. There's no privacy, no separate bedrooms. Everyone sleeps in the same room, often in the same bed to stay warm. Your wife has made dinner. It's gruel, literally gruel. Watery oatmeal with maybe some scraps of vegetables if she could afford them at the market. It tastes like nothing and fills you up not at all, but it's what you've got. Your youngest child is sick. She's been sick for weeks. Fever, cough, weakness. It might be TB, it might be typhoid. It might be any one of a dozen diseases that are rampant in the tenements. You can't afford a doctor. Even if you could, the doctor probably couldn't help. Medical science in 1850 is barely better than medieval times. You eat your gruel in silence, too exhausted to speak. Then you collapse onto the straw mattress you share with your family. The straw is full of bed bugs. You feel them crawling on you, biting you. You're too tired to care. You close your eyes, knowing that in 5 hours you have to get up and do this all over again. Tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, for the rest of your life, which statistically won't be very long. The average life expectancy for a factory worker in 1850 London is about 38 years. You've survived day 1, barely. Chapter 6, the weekend doesn't exist. Oh, did you think you get weekends off? That's adorable. You work 6 days a week. Sunday is your only day off, and even that's not really a day off. Sunday morning, you're expected to attend church. It's not optional, it's a social requirement. If you don't go to church, you're marked as immoral, which can get you fired. The church service is 3 hours long, and you have to stand the entire time because the good seats are reserved for people who can pay for them. After church, you have to do all the things you couldn't do during the week. Your wife needs to do laundry, which means hauling water from the communal pump, which is half a mile away, heating it over a fire, and scrubbing clothes by hand. This takes all day. You need to try to fix your shoes, mend your clothes, maybe look for extra work because your wages aren't enough to feed your family. There's no relaxing. There's no leisure time. The concept doesn't exist for your social class. By Sunday evening, you're not rested. You're just differently exhausted. And then Monday morning comes, and you're back at the factory. This is your life, forever. Until you die, which will probably be soon. Chapter 7, the diseases you can't escape. Let's talk about all the ways you're probably going to die in Victorian London, because there are so many options. Cholera. Remember that water from the Thames you've been drinking? It's full of cholera bacteria. Cholera causes such severe diarrhea that you can die of dehydration in hours. The 1854 cholera outbreak killed over 10,000 people in London. You could be next. Typhoid, also from contaminated water, causes high fever, weakness, and stomach pains. Mortality rate of about 20% without treatment. With 1850s treatment, still about 20% because the treatment is basically just hoping you don't die. Tuberculosis. You're breathing it in at the factory right now. It destroys your lungs slowly over months or years. There's no cure. You just cough up blood until you die. Fun. Smallpox, highly contagious, leaves you covered in pus-filled blisters, kills about 30% of people who get it. Vaccination exists by 1850, but it's not mandatory and costs money you don't have. Dysentery, severe diarrhea from contaminated food and water. You literally shit yourself to death, extremely common in the tenements. Scarlet fever, particularly deadly for children. Your kid has a sore throat and a rash? Might be dead in 3 days, no treatment available. Diphtheria, creates a membrane in your throat that suffocates you. Watching your child slowly suffocate over days because their throat is closing up is a common parental experience in 1850. Blood poisoning. Remember those infected cuts on your hands? If they get bad enough, the infection enters your bloodstream and you die in agony as your organs shut down. No antibiotics exist yet. Industrial accidents. Not a disease, but a major cause of death. Machines don't have safety guards. Boilers explode. Workers fall into vats of chemicals. The factory owners don't care because workers are replaceable. And here's the kicker. You probably have multiple of these diseases at the same time. Malnutrition has destroyed your immune system, so you're vulnerable to everything. You're a walking petri dish of 19th century pestilence. Chapter 8. Why you, specifically, wouldn't survive. Now let's get personal. Why wouldn't you, specifically, a modern person, survive even one day of this? You're not physically conditioned. You think you're in shape because you go to the gym 3 times a week. Cool. Can you stand in one spot doing repetitive manual labor for 14 hours straight? No breaks, except 30 minutes for lunch? Didn't think so. You'd collapse from exhaustion by hour 6. You have no immunity. Modern people have been partially shielded from diseases by vaccines and antibiotics. Your immune system has never encountered cholera, typhoid, or any of the other fun Victorian diseases. You'd get sick immediately and severely. You can't handle the pain. You're used to taking ibuprofen for a headache. When your hands are bleeding and infected, when your feet are covered in blisters, when your back is in constant spasm, you'd break down. You'd quit. Except you can't quit, because then you starve. You're used to safety. Modern life has made you soft. You expect guardrails and safety equipment and warning labels. The Victorian factory has none of that. You'd lose a finger in the first week, maybe a hand, maybe your life. You can't handle the food. Your modern digestive system is used to clean, processed, regulated food. The contaminated slop you'd be eating in 1850 would have you projectile vomiting and experiencing dysentery within days. You need too much sleep. Good luck functioning on 5 hours of sleep a night, every night, forever. Your body would break down. You're psychologically fragile. I don't mean this as an insult. We all are compared to people who lived through this. You're used to entertainment, distraction, comfort, hope for the future. The grinding, relentless, hopeless misery of industrial revolution poverty would psychologically destroy you. You can't handle the social isolation. You're used to having friends, hobbies, social connections. In Victorian London, you have no time or energy for any of that. Your entire existence is work, eat, sleep, repeat. The loneliness would crush you. Part 2. Medieval Europe. 1347. The Black Death. Chapter 9. Welcome to your pestilent nightmare. Congratulations, you've escaped Victorian London, but I've got bad news for you. We're going backwards in time, way backwards. It's now 1347, and you're in a small village in rural France, and something very, very bad is about to happen. You wake up on a dirt floor. Not a floor with dirt on it, literally just dirt. Your house is a one-room wattle and daub structure that's about 15 feet by 15 feet. The walls are made of sticks woven together and plastered with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung. Yes, you live in a house partially made of shit. There are no windows, glasses for rich people, and you are decidedly not rich. There's a hole in the roof for smoke to escape from your fire, but it doesn't work very well, so the entire house is constantly filled with smoke. Your eyes burn all the time. Everyone in medieval Europe has chronic respiratory problems from living in smoke-filled houses. You share this luxurious residence with your wife, your 5 children, 3 of whom will be dead within a year, but you don't know that yet. 2 pigs, several chickens, and an ox. The animals live inside because it's too cold outside and they'll die. Also, their body heat helps keep you warm in winter. The smell is indescribable. It's animal waste mixed with human waste, mixed with rotting straw, mixed with unwashed bodies, mixed with smoke. You've never had a bath, not once in your entire life. Bathing is considered dangerous. People believe it opens up your pores and lets disease in. You literally never bathe, ever. Your clothes are the same ones you've been wearing for about 3 years. They're made of rough wool that's never been washed. They're infested with lice, fleas, and various other parasites. You're constantly scratching. Everyone is constantly scratching. It's just normal. You wake up because the rooster is crowing. It's dawn, which means it's time to start working. You don't have a clock. You don't know what time it is ever. You work from dawn until dusk, and the length of your workday depends entirely on what season it is. Chapter 10. breakfast of peasants. Your wife is making breakfast. It's pottage. It's always pottage. Pottage is basically a thick stew made of whatever vegetables you have. Usually onions, cabbage, and maybe some peas, boiled in water with some oats or barley. If you're lucky, there might be a tiny bit of salted pork in there for flavor, but probably not. You eat it out of a wooden bowl with a wooden spoon. You don't have plates. You don't have forks. Forks haven't been invented for common people yet. You have a knife that you use for everything: eating, cutting wood, defending yourself, slaughtering animals, and surgery if it comes to that. The pottage tastes like absolutely nothing. There's no salt. Salt is expensive and controlled by the nobility. There are no spices, no seasoning of any kind. It's just boiled vegetables in water. But you eat it because it's literally all you have. Your children are eating bread. Not good bread. The bread you eat is made from rye and barley mixed with whatever else could be ground into flour, including beans, acorns, and sometimes sawdust when times are really tough. It's dark, dense, and so hard you have to soak it in liquid to eat it without breaking your teeth. Speaking of teeth, yours are rotting out of your head. Everyone's are. There's no dental care. If a tooth hurts bad enough, you pull it out yourself or have the barber surgeon pull it out. Without anesthesia, just yank it out and hope you don't die of infection. You notice your youngest son isn't eating. He's curled up in the corner, shivering, even though it's not cold. He has a fever. He's been sick for 2 days. You're worried, but what can you do? There's no doctor in the village. The nearest town with a doctor is a 2-day walk away, and even if you could get there, you couldn't afford it. Medieval medicine is worse than useless. It's actively harmful. Doctors believe disease is caused by an imbalance of the 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Treatment involves bloodletting, cutting you open to drain bad blood, applying leeches, or giving you mercury to drink. These treatments will kill you faster than most diseases. Your son probably has influenza. In the modern world, he'd be uncomfortable for a few days, and then fine. Here, there's a solid chance he dies. Child mortality in medieval Europe is about 30 to 50%. If you have 5 children, you can expect 2 or 3 of them to die before age 5, but you can't dwell on that now. You have to get to work. Chapter 11. The Fields of Feudal Fun. You're a serf, not quite a slave. You can't be bought or sold individually, but pretty damn close. You belong to the land, and the land belongs to the local lord. You can't leave, ever. If you try to run away and you're caught, you'll be brutally punished, maybe branded, maybe hanged. Your job is to farm the Lord's land, not your land, his land. You get to keep a small portion of what you grow to feed your family. The rest goes to the Lord. You also have to work several days a week on the Lord's personal estate for free. This is called corvée labor, and it's mandatory. Today you're working in the fields. You're using a wooden plow pulled by your ox. The plow is inefficient and constantly breaking. You're trying to till the heavy clay soil to prepare it for planting, and it's backbreaking work. Medieval farming is incredibly labor-intensive and inefficient. You work harder than any modern person can imagine and produce a fraction of what a modern farm produces. There are no tractors, no mechanized equipment, no chemical fertilizers, no pesticides. Everything is done by hand or with animal power. The sun is beating down. It's June, so it's hot. You're sweating through your wool tunic, which makes the itching from the lice even worse. You're thirsty, but the water situation is problematic. There's a well in the village, but it's contaminated. Not that anyone knows what contamination means. Germ theory won't be discovered for another 500 years. People just know that sometimes water makes you sick and sometimes it doesn't. It's God's will, they figure. Most people drink weak beer or ale instead of water, not because they're alcoholics, but because the brewing process kills bacteria, making it safer than water. So everyone, including children, drinks beer for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You take a break to drink some ale from a leather flask. It's warm, flat, and tastes like feet, but it's wet and slightly alcoholic, which helps dull the constant pain you're in. Your back is already hurting. You're 32 years old, but your body is destroyed from a lifetime of hard labor. You have chronic back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain. You're missing several teeth. Your hands are gnarled with arthritis. You look about 60 by modern standards. The average life expectancy is about 30 to 35 years, but that's misleading because it's dragged down by high infant mortality. If you survive childhood, you might make it to 50 or 60, but you'll be in constant pain the entire time, and your quality of life will be terrible. Chapter 12. The stranger arrives. Around midday, while you're working in the fields, you see something unusual. A stranger is walking down the road toward the village. This is rare. Most people never travel more than a few miles from where they were born in their entire lives. Strangers are noteworthy. As he gets closer, you notice something's wrong with him. He's stumbling, walking erratically. When he gets close enough to see clearly, you feel your blood run cold. He has buboes, large black swellings, on his neck and under his arms. His skin has dark patches, subcutaneous bleeding. He's coughing up blood. His eyes are wild and feverish. You know what this is. Everyone knows what this is. The rumors have been spreading for months. A terrible plague sweeping across Europe, killing everyone in its path. It started in the east and has been moving west, leaving devastation in its wake. The Black Death has arrived in your village. The stranger collapses in the road. No one goes to help him. Everyone backs away. Your lord's bailiff shouts at people to stay away from the body. But it's too late. He's been in your village. He's breathed the same air. The plague is here now. Within 24 hours, 3 people in the village are showing symptoms. Within a week, it's 20. Within a month, half the village is dead. Chapter 13. The plague unfolds. Let me explain what the Black Death actually does to you, because it's genuinely one of the most horrific ways to die ever devised by nature. The plague is caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas that live on rats. Medieval villages are paradise for rats. Food scraps everywhere, no sanitation, grain stores to feast on. Your house probably has a dozen rats living in it right now. When an infected flea bites you, the bacteria enter your bloodstream and travel to your lymph nodes. Your lymph nodes swell up into massive, painful lumps called buboes. That's the bubonic plague. These buboes can be as big as apples. They're excruciatingly painful, and they often burst, releasing pus and blood. But it gets worse. The bacteria multiply in your bloodstream, causing septicemia. Your blood vessels start leaking, causing subcutaneous hemorrhaging. That's why victims turn black, giving the plague its name. Your extremities start to rot and turn black from gangrene while you're still alive. Your organs start failing. You develop a high fever, severe weakness, and delirium. You might develop the pneumonic form, where the infection reaches your lungs. Then you're coughing up blood and spreading the disease through the air to everyone around you. From infection to death usually takes about 3 to 7 days. The mortality rate is 40 to 60% for bubonic plague, and nearly 100% for pneumonic plague in an era before antibiotics. And here's the thing that makes it truly terrifying. You can do absolutely nothing to stop it. You don't know it's caused by bacteria. You don't know about germ theory. You think it's caused by bad air, miasma theory, God's punishment for sin, or an unfavorable alignment of the planets. The cures people try are useless or actively harmful. Flagellation, whipping yourself to atone for sins. Bleeding, making you weaker and more likely to die. Poultices made of human feces. Yes, really. Drinking mercury or arsenic. Burning aromatic herbs to purify the air. Killing all the cats and dogs in the village, which actually makes it worse because now there's nothing to kill the rats. Chapter 14. Your family falls. Your youngest son, the one who was sick with fever a few days ago, is the first in your family to show symptoms. The fever gets worse. Then the buboes appear on his neck. He's in agony, crying and screaming from the pain. You try everything you can think of. Your wife makes a poultice of garlic and onions and applies it to the buboes. It does nothing. The village wise woman comes and bleeds him, cutting open a vein in his arm to let out the bad blood. This just makes him weaker. He dies on the third day. He's 6 years old. You wrap his body in a sheet. You don't have money for a coffin, and carry him to the church graveyard. But the priest tells you there's no more room. The graveyard is full. Bodies are being buried in mass graves outside the village. So you dig a hole yourself and bury your son in unconsecrated ground. There's no funeral. The priest is too busy. He's conducting dozens of funerals a day, and he's exhausted. Also, he's probably going to die of plague himself within a week. Priests have one of the highest mortality rates because they're constantly exposed while giving last rites. You go home to find your wife is now showing symptoms, then your daughter, then your oldest son. You're watching your entire family die in front of you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. This is the reality for millions of people across Europe right now. Chapter 15. The village dies within 2 months. Your entire family is dead. Your wife, all 5 children, gone. You're one of the lucky ones. You haven't gotten sick yet. Maybe you're immune. Maybe you just haven't been exposed to the right flea yet. Maybe God has some worse fate in store for you. The village is a ghost town. Out of 200 people, maybe 80 are still alive. Bodies are piled in the streets because there aren't enough healthy people left to bury them. The smell of rotting corpses is overwhelming. The fields are untended. It's harvest time, but there's no one to harvest. The crops are rotting in the fields. This means that even if you survive the plague, you're probably going to starve this winter because there's no food. The social order has completely broken down. The Lord fled to his castle and locked the gates. The bailiff is dead. The priest is dead. The blacksmith is dead. All the people who made the village function are gone. Survivors are looting the homes of the dead, not because they're bad people, but because they need tools, blankets, food, anything that might help them survive. You do it too. You take your neighbor's ox because yours died and you need it to plow. Your neighbor doesn't need it anymore because he's dead along with his entire family. Some villages try to quarantine themselves. They block the roads, refuse to let anyone in or out. Sometimes it works. Usually it doesn't. The plague is already inside, brought in by the rats and fleas that don't respect barricades. There are reports of cities where the entire population died. Just everyone, dead. Empty cities full of corpses and rats. The psychological trauma is beyond comprehension. You've watched your entire family die horrible deaths. Most of your friends and neighbors are dead. The world you knew has ended, and you have no idea if it's ever going to stop, or if this is just how life is now. Chapter 16. The aftermath and societal collapse. The Black Death kills somewhere between 75 and 200 million people in Eurasia, roughly 30 to 60% of Europe's population. Entire villages are wiped out. Some cities lose 70 to 80% of their population. But let's talk about what happens to you personally, assuming you survive. You're now living alone in a half-empty village. Your family is gone. Your house, the one you shared with your wife and children and animals, is too big and too empty and full of ghosts. Every corner reminds you of someone who's dead. The fields are full of weeds because there aren't enough people left to tend them. The harvest was terrible. Food is scarce. Prices are skyrocketing because supply is down and there are fewer people to grow food. But here's the weird thing. In some ways, life actually gets better for surviving peasants. Wait, what? With so many people dead, there's a labor shortage. Suddenly, you're valuable. Lords are competing for workers. You can demand higher wages or better conditions. Some serfs use this to negotiate their freedom. The feudal system starts to break down Because the math doesn't work anymore. There aren't enough peasants to support the nobility. But that's long term. Short term, you're living in a traumatized, devastated society that's trying to make sense of why God would allow this to happen. The church's explanations that it's punishment for sin don't really hold up when babies and devout priests are dying at the same rate as sinners. Some people turn to extreme religiosity. Flagellant movements travel from town to town, whipping themselves bloody to atone for humanity's sins. Others turn to hedonism. If we're all going to die anyway, might as well enjoy what time we have left. There's a surge in anti-Semitic violence. Jews are accused of poisoning wells and causing the plague. Never mind that Jews are dying of plague at the same rate as Christians. Mobs massacre entire Jewish communities. It's one of the darkest chapters in an already dark period. You're just trying to survive. You've got to plant crops for next year, assuming you live that long. You've got to repair your house, which is falling apart. You've got to find a way to live with the memories of watching your children die in agony. This is your life now, and it's not going to get significantly better for the rest of your short, painful existence. Chapter 17. Why you specifically wouldn't survive the medieval period. Let's get personal again. Why wouldn't you, modern person, survive even a day in medieval Europe? You'd die of a minor infection. That cut on your hand from farming? In the modern world, you'd wash it, put on some Neosporin, and forget about it. Here, it gets infected. The infection spreads. You die of sepsis. I'm not exaggerating. Minor cuts and scratches kill people all the time. You can't handle the diet. You're used to a varied diet with proteins, vitamins, and minerals. Medieval peasant diet is almost entirely carbohydrates. Bread, pottage, more pottage. You'd develop scurvy from vitamin C deficiency within months. Your teeth would fall out. Your gums would rot. You'd go insane from the isolation. Medieval villages are tiny and isolated. You'd see the same 50 to 200 people every day for your entire life. No travel, no internet, no books. You can't read anyway. No entertainment beyond maybe a traveling performer once a year. The boredom and isolation would destroy you psychologically. You can't handle the cold. Medieval winters are brutal. Your house has no insulation and a fire that barely works. You'd be cold from November to March, constantly, painfully cold. You'd get chilblains, frostbite. You might freeze to death in your own bed. You'd break from the constant death. You're not psychologically prepared to watch children die regularly. It was normal in medieval times. Parents expected to lose several children. You'd have a complete psychological breakdown after watching your first child die of dysentery. You can't handle the physical labor. Farming with medieval technology is incredibly hard. 8 to 12 hours a day of backbreaking manual labor, every day, forever. Your modern body, even if you work out, isn't conditioned for this. You'd injure yourself in the first week. You have no useful skills. Can you make bread from scratch, starting with harvesting grain? Can you butcher an animal? Can you preserve food without refrigeration? Can you spin wool into thread? Can you thatch a roof? No, then you're useless in medieval society. You'd die of plague. Obviously, you have no immunity to medieval diseases. The Black Death would kill you. If not that, then typhus, or dysentery, or influenza, or any of the dozen diseases constantly circulating through medieval Europe. Part 3. Ancient Rome, 109-65 AD. The Antonine Plague. Chapter 18. The Eternal City of Eternal Suffering. All right, you've survived. Barely Victorian London and medieval France. Surely things were better in the glory days of Rome, right? The Roman Empire at its height, the pinnacle of classical civilization. Wrong. So very, very wrong. You wake up in an insula, a Roman apartment building, but you're not in a nice apartment. You're in a fourth-floor room in a building that's basically a death trap. Roman insulae are notorious for collapsing and catching fire. They're built cheaply and quickly to house Rome's massive population, and they're constantly falling down and killing everyone inside. Your room is about 8 feet by 8 feet. You share it with your wife and 3 children. There's no furniture except for some straw on the floor to sleep on. There's no bathroom. There's no kitchen. There's no running water in your apartment. That's only for the rich people on the ground floor. To use the toilet, you either go down to the public latrine, a communal bench with holes where you sit, next to strangers while everyone defecates together, or you use a pot in your room and then dump it out the window into the street. Yes, people throw human waste out of windows. The streets of Rome are covered in filth. To get water, you go to the public fountain and carry it back up 4 flights of stairs. You do this multiple times a day. There are no elevators. Everything has to be carried up and downstairs manually. To cook, you either use a small brazier in your room, which is incredibly dangerous and why insulae constantly catch fire, or you buy prepared food from street vendors. Most poor Romans never cook at home. They buy all their meals from Thermopylae, ancient fast food restaurants. You're awoken by shouting from the street below. There's always shouting. Rome is incredibly loud 24 hours a day. It's so loud that Julius Caesar had to ban wheeled vehicles from the city center during daylight hours because the noise was unbearable. So now all the supply carts come at night, making nighttime even louder. You get up and prepare for work. You're a plebeian, a common citizen, but not a slave. About 30% of Rome's population are slaves, and you're constantly aware that you're only a few bad breaks away from joining them. Debt slavery is common. If you can't pay your debts, you can be sold into slavery. Chapter 19. The streets of Rome. You head out into the streets, and it's immediately overwhelming. Rome has a population of about 1 million people crammed into a relatively small area. It's crowded, loud, smelly, and dangerous. The streets are narrow, maybe 10 to 15 feet wide, and they're absolutely packed with people, animals, carts, and filth. Remember that thing about dumping chamber pots out windows? Yeah, you have to watch out for that. People shout, "Look out below," before dumping, but not always. Getting hit with a bucket of human waste from 4 stories up is a genuine daily hazard. The streets themselves are in terrible condition. They're unpaved except for the main thoroughfares. The side streets are just packed dirt mixed with garbage, animal waste, and human waste. When it rains, they turn into rivers of sewage. You have to navigate around. Dead animals rotting in the street. Beggars, lots of beggars, many horribly disfigured from untreated injuries or diseases. Street vendors shouting about their wares. Pickpockets, extremely common. You clutch your small bag of coins tightly. Mangy dogs fighting over scraps. Rats, so many rats. People just pissing in the street in broad daylight because the public latrines are too far away. The smell is indescribable. It's sweat, urine, feces, rotting garbage, smoke from thousands of fires, unwashed bodies, and the particular stench of the fish sauce, garum, that Romans put on everything. Garum is made from fermented fish guts, and it smells like death, but it's a staple of Roman cuisine. You're heading to the docks where you work as a dock laborer. It's a 2-mile walk through the chaos of Roman streets. You can't afford transportation. Litters and chairs are for rich people. You walk everywhere. Chapter 20. Work at the docks. You arrive at the docks on the Tiber River. This is where goods from across the empire arrive. Grain from Egypt, wine from Gaul, olive oil from Spain, slaves from everywhere. Your job is to unload cargo ships. This means carrying heavy sacks of grain or amphorae full of wine or olive oil from ships to warehouses. Each sack weighs about 100 pounds. You carry them on your back up a narrow plank from the ship to the dock. If you slip, you fall into the Tiber. The Tiber is disgusting. It's brown, not blue. It's full of sewage from the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's main sewer, which dumps directly into the river. There are dead animals floating in it, probably dead people too. Slaves who die are often just dumped in the river. You work from dawn to dusk, maybe 12 to 14 hours depending on the season. There are no regulations, no unions, no worker protections. You're paid by the load, so you work as fast as you can, which leads to lots of accidents. Men fall into the river and drown. They're crushed by cargo. They rupture themselves, trying to lift too much weight. Just this morning, you watched a man drop a 100-pound sack on his foot, crushing it. He screamed for a while, then went into shock. Someone carried him away. He'll probably die of infection. There's no such thing as workers' compensation or disability payments. If you're injured and can't work, you don't get paid. If you can't work, you starve. It's that simple. The foreman is brutal. He's carrying a stick, and he's not afraid to use it. If you're too slow, you get hit. If you complain, you get hit. If you take a break, you get hit. And if you fight back, you'll be arrested and possibly executed. The foreman is a citizen. You're just a plebeian. His word against yours, he wins every time. Chapter 21. The plague arrives. Again, it's 165 AD, and something bad is happening. Soldiers returning from campaigns in the east have brought back more than just plunder. They've brought back a disease. We don't know exactly what it was. Maybe smallpox, maybe measles, but it's devastating. This is the Antonine Plague, and it's going to kill somewhere between 5 and 10 million people across the Roman Empire over the next 15 years. You first hear about it from other dock workers. Whole military units are being wiped out. Villages in the countryside are being devastated. And now it's in Rome. The symptoms are horrific. High fever, sore throat, diarrhea, and if it's smallpox, your skin becomes covered in pus-filled pustules that eventually scab over and leave horrible scars. If you survive, the mortality rate is about 25 to 30%. Not as bad as the Black Death, but still terrible. And remember, you're malnourished, stressed, living in overcrowded conditions with poor sanitation. Your chances are worse than average. People are dying faster than they can be buried. The usual Roman funeral practices, cremation or burial, outside the city walls, can't keep up with the volume of bodies. The smell of funeral pyres is constant. Roman medicine is better than medieval medicine, but not by much. Galen, the famous physician, is treating people during this plague. His recommendations include bloodletting, inducing vomiting, and administering theriac, a compound medicine containing dozens of ingredients, including viper flesh and opium. None of it works. People keep dying. Chapter 22. Social breakdown, Roman style. As the plague spreads through Rome, society starts to break down. Rich people flee to their country villas. Slaves are abandoned by masters who don't want to risk infection. Bodies pile up in the streets. The economy crashes. Farms are left untended because farmers are dead. Trade routes are disrupted. Food becomes scarce. Prices skyrocket. There are food riots. The government tries to maintain order, but it's difficult. Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself might die of the plague. Historians debate this. The army is decimated, making Rome vulnerable to barbarian invasions. In the cities, desperation leads to all kinds of terrible behavior. Looting is rampant. Families abandon sick relatives, leaving them to die in the streets because they're afraid of catching the disease. Some people turn to extreme religion, others to debauchery. You watch your neighbor, a man you've known for years, die alone in his apartment. His family fled, afraid of infection. His body sits there for 3 days before someone finally removes it. You can smell it decomposing. Your own family is terrified. You've been exposed constantly at the docks, working alongside hundreds of men, many of whom are getting sick. It's only a matter of time. Chapter 23. Daily life gets worse. Even without the plague, daily life in Rome is a constant struggle. Let's talk about all the other fun ways. Ancient Rome is trying to kill you. Lead poisoning. Romans used lead for everything. Water pipes. Plumbum, where we get plumbing. Cooking vessels. Wine preservation, cosmetics, and even as a sweetener for food. You're being slowly poisoned by lead every single day. It causes cognitive decline, abdominal pain, and reproductive problems. Some historians think widespread lead poisoning contributed to Rome's decline. Food safety. There's no refrigeration and no food safety standards. Food poisoning is constant. That fish garum. It's made in giant vats where fish guts ferment in the sun for months. Sometimes people fall into the vats and drown, and no one notices until later. You might be eating fermented human fish sauce. Parasites. Everyone has intestinal parasites. Everyone. Roundworms, tapeworms, liver flukes. They're endemic. There's no sanitation, and people use human feces as fertilizer for crops, creating a perfect parasite life cycle. Public bathing. Romans loved their public baths, and you use them too because you can't afford a private bath. But the water is rarely changed, and hundreds of people use the same water. It's a perfect disease transmission vector. Also, Roman bathhouses often have flesh-eating bacteria in the water. Fun, gladiator shows, these are the main entertainment. You're expected to attend and cheer as people are torn apart by lions, hacked to death with swords, or executed in creative ways. This is normal. This is what people do for fun. If you don't enjoy watching people die horribly, you're considered weird. Crucifixion. The Romans crucified thousands of people along major roads as a warning to others. You walk past lines of crucified slaves, criminals, and rebels. They die slowly over days, and you can hear them screaming and begging for water. This is just part of the scenery. Random violence. Rome is incredibly violent. Murder is common. Bodies are found in the streets regularly. If you're out after dark, you might be mugged, stabbed, or kidnapped for ransom. Rich people have bodyguards. You have nothing. Noise pollution. Remember how I said Rome is loud? It's worse than you can imagine. The noise literally never stops. Blacksmiths, street vendors, construction, animals, fighting, crying, shouting, all day and all night. There are complaints from ancient Romans about not being able to sleep because of the noise. Insomnia is universal. Part 3. Continued. Ancient Rome and Other Nightmares. Chapter 24. Your family falls to the Antonine Plague. It's been 3 weeks since the plague reached Rome, and you've been lucky. Until now. Your youngest daughter wakes up screaming. She's burning with fever. You touch her forehead, and it's like touching a hot coal. Within hours, the pustules start appearing, first on her face, then spreading across her entire body. They're filled with pus and blood, and she's in agony. There's nothing you can do. You can't afford a doctor. Even if you could, Roman doctors don't actually know how to treat this. You try the folk remedies everyone's talking about. Amulets with protective words, prayers to Asclepius, the healing god, wrapping her in cold cloths. Nothing works. She dies on the 4th day. She's 7 years old, and she died covered in oozing sores, burning with fever, probably not even recognizing you at the end. You wrap her tiny body in a sheet. You sold everything valuable you owned to buy that sheet, and carry her to the mass burial pit outside the city walls. There's no ceremony, no funeral rites, just dozens of bodies being dumped into a pit and covered with lime. You say a prayer to the household gods, but your faith is shaken. What kind of gods allow this? You go home to find your son is now showing symptoms. Then your wife. You're watching it happen again. Just like in medieval France, just like in every plague, through history. Your family is dying, and you're powerless. But this time, something different happens. You get sick too, chapter 25. Your own plague experience. The fever hits you like a hammer. One moment you're standing, the next you're on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Your temperature skyrockets. You're simultaneously freezing and burning up. The headache is splitting. It feels like someone's driving a spike through your skull. Your throat is so sore you can barely swallow. Every joint in your body aches. You're so weak you can't stand. Then the rash appears. Small red spots at first, then they grow and fill with pus. They're on your face, your arms, your torso, everywhere. They itch and burn and hurt all at once. When they burst, and they do burst, the pain is excruciating. You're delirious with fever. You're seeing things that aren't there. You're having conversations with dead relatives. Time loses all meaning. Is it day? Night? Have you been sick for hours? Or weeks? Your wife, who's also sick, but not as badly, tries to give you water, but you vomit it back up immediately. You have constant diarrhea, but you're too weak to make it to the chamber pot, so you're just lying in your own filth. This is what dying of plague is like, and you're experiencing it without painkillers, without antibiotics, without IV fluids, without any medical intervention whatsoever. You're one of the lucky ones, though. Your fever breaks on the 6th day. You survive, but you're permanently scarred. Your face is covered in pockmarks from the pustules. You've lost about 30 pounds. You're so weak, you can barely walk. Your wife survives too, your son doesn't. 2 out of your 3 children are dead now. This is your new reality. Chapter 26. Trying to rebuild the plague eventually subsides, but Rome is changed forever. The population has dropped significantly. Entire apartment buildings stand empty because everyone inside died. The economy is in shambles. You go back to work at the docks because you have no choice. You need money to eat, but everything hurts. Your body, weakened by the plague, is struggling with the heavy labor. You're slower than you used to be. The foreman notices and doesn't care about your excuses. You get paid less because you're less productive. Your neighborhood is half empty now. Of the 50 families in your insula, maybe 25 remain. The rest died or fled. The building itself is falling apart. There's no one to maintain it, and the landlord doesn't care enough to fix anything. The streets are somehow even worse than before. Without enough people to maintain basic services, garbage is piling up. The Tiber is clogged with debris and bodies. Disease is still circulating. Maybe not the plague, but dysentery, typhoid, and other killers. Food is expensive because there aren't enough farmers. You're eating even worse than before. Mostly bread, occasionally some vegetables or cheap fish. Never meat. Meat is for rich people. You're 35 years old. By Roman standards, you're middle-aged. By modern standards, you look ancient. Your teeth are rotting. Your body is covered in scars from work accidents and the plague. You have chronic pain in your back and joints. You're probably going to die within the next 10 to 15 years if you're lucky. This is what survival looks like in ancient Rome. Chapter 27. The other ways Rome kills you. Let's talk about all the other charming aspects of Roman life that we haven't covered yet. Slavery. Remember how I said 30% of Rome's population are slaves? That means everywhere you go, you're seeing enslaved people being worked to death, beaten, sexually assaulted, and treated as property. This is normal. This is legal. This is what Rome is built on. And you're not safe from slavery yourself. If Rome goes to war and loses, you could be enslaved. If you can't pay your debts, you could be enslaved. If you are accused of a crime and can't defend yourself, you could be enslaved. The line between free and enslaved is thinner than you think. Women's lives. If you're a woman in ancient Rome, your life is even worse. You're legal property of your father until you're married, then you're legal property of your husband. You have essentially no rights. You can't vote, can't hold office, can't own property in your own name, with rare exceptions. You're expected to marry young, like 12 to 14 years old, to a man chosen by your father. You'll probably die in childbirth because Roman obstetrics are terrible. If you survive childbirth, you'll be expected to produce as many children as possible, and most of them will die. Children's lives. Children have no rights whatsoever. Infanticide is legal and common. If a baby is born deformed, or if the family is too poor, they just leave it outside to die of exposure. This is called exposure, and it's completely normal. Child abuse is rampant and not illegal. Children can be beaten, sold, or killed. by their parents with no legal consequences. The paterfamilias, the male head of household, has absolute power over everyone in his family, including the power of life and death. Medical care. Roman medicine is a nightmare. Surgery is done without anesthesia. They just hold you down and cut. Trepanation, drilling holes in your skull, is a common treatment for headaches. They believe in the four humors and treat everything with bloodletting. Got a wound? They'll pack it with spider webs and dung. Eye infection? They'll put breast milk in your eye. Toothache? They'll pull the tooth with pliers and no painkillers. Mental illness? You're possessed by demons. Time for an exorcism, or maybe just lock you up and forget about you. No concept of hygiene. Yes, Romans bathed regularly, but they don't understand germ theory. They reuse surgical instruments without cleaning them. They use communal sponges on sticks to wipe their asses in public latrines. The same sponge everyone else uses, just rinsed in water, maybe. Doctors don't wash their hands between patients. Food vendors don't wash their hands. No one washes their hands because they don't know why they should. Entertainment is violence. The Colosseum and other amphitheaters host shows where thousands of people die for entertainment. Gladiators fighting to the death, criminals torn apart by wild animals, mass executions staged as mythological reenactments. You're expected to attend these and cheer. It's a social obligation. If you don't go, people think you're weird or suspicious. You have to watch people die horribly and pretend to enjoy it. No childhood. There's no concept of childhood as a protected period of development. Children are just small adults. As soon as they can work, they work. Your 6-year-old isn't in school. He's working alongside you at the docks, carrying loads that destroy his developing skeleton. Education is only for wealthy boys. Girls aren't educated at all. Poor boys aren't educated. You're illiterate and you'll die illiterate. And so will your children. Chapter 28. Why you specifically wouldn't last in ancient Rome. Time for another personal reality check. Why wouldn't you survive ancient Rome? You can't handle the sanitation. You're used to flushing toilets and running water. The idea of sitting on a communal toilet bench, shoulder to shoulder with strangers, all of you defecating together while sharing a communal ass-wiping sponge, you'd probably rather die. And you might, from the diseases you'd catch. You'd die of lead poisoning. You drink water from lead pipes, eat food cooked in lead pots, sweeten your wine with lead, use lead cosmetics. You'd accumulate toxic levels of lead in your system and suffer cognitive decline, organ damage, and eventually death. You can't handle the violence. You're not psychologically prepared for the casual, constant violence of Roman life. Watching people beaten in the streets, crucified by the roadside, torn apart by lions in the arena, it would traumatize you. Romans were desensitized to it. You're not. The diseases would kill you. Malaria is endemic in Rome. Tuberculosis is everywhere. Typhoid, dysentery, plague, smallpox. You'd be constantly sick. And eventually one of these diseases would kill you because there's no modern medicine to save you. You can't do the labor. Dock work in ancient Rome is brutally hard. Carrying 100-pound sacks for 12 hours a day, every day, would destroy your body in weeks. You don't have the conditioning, the technique, or the calluses to survive it. You'd go insane from the noise. The constant 24-hour noise of Rome would drive you mad. You can't escape it, ever. You'd develop chronic insomnia, anxiety, and eventually a complete psychological breakdown. You have no legal protections. You're used to having rights. In Rome, you have almost none. You can be beaten, robbed, enslaved, or killed with minimal legal recourse. The cognitive dissonance of being that powerless would break you. You'd starve. Roman poor people's diet is terrible. Mostly bread, occasionally vegetables, rarely meat. You'd be malnourished, vitamin deficient, and constantly hungry. Your modern body isn't adapted to surviving on so few calories and nutrients. Part 4. Colonial America, 1620. Chapter 29. Welcome to Plymouth. Congratulations. You've survived ancient Rome. Now let's jump forward to 1620 and drop you in Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts. Surely this is better, right? It's more recent. The Pilgrims are heroes of American mythology. This should be easy. Wrong again. You're on the Mayflower, a merchant ship that's carrying about 102 passengers from England to the New World. The voyage takes 66 days. Let me describe those 66 days, because they're a special kind of hell. The ship is 106 feet long and 25 feet wide. You're sharing this space with over 100 people, plus crew, plus cargo, plus livestock. There's no privacy. There are no bathrooms. You use a bucket, and when it's too rough to go on deck, you just hold it, or use the bucket and let it slosh around. You're below deck for most of the voyage because the weather is terrible. It's dark, damp, and cold. The only light comes from a few small candles, which are strictly rationed because fire on a wooden ship is death for everyone. The smell is indescribable. It's unwashed bodies, vomit, everyone is seasick, human waste, animal waste, bilge water, and rotting food, all mixed together in an enclosed space. You're breathing this air 24 hours a day for over 2 months. Food is salt pork, hardtack, biscuits so hard they break your teeth, and whatever doesn't spoil. Water goes bad quickly, so you're drinking beer that's going sour. You're constantly thirsty, constantly hungry, constantly nauseous. People are dying. During the voyage, several passengers die of disease. Their bodies are wrapped in canvas and dumped overboard. You watch this happen and wonder if you'll be next. Finally, you reach land. November in Massachusetts. You've arrived at the worst possible time. Chapter 30. The first winter. The Pilgrims arrive in November, 1620. Winter is coming, and they're completely unprepared. Half of them will be dead by spring. Let me explain why. First, they're in the wrong place. They were supposed to go to Virginia, where there's already an established colony. Instead, they've landed in Massachusetts, where there's nothing. No infrastructure, no support, no help. Second, it's too late to plant crops. Even if they had seeds and knew what they were doing, they don't. The growing season is over. There will be no harvest. They're going to have to survive winter on whatever food they brought from the ship, whatever they can hunt or gather, and whatever they can trade from the Native Americans. Third, they have to build shelter before winter hits. They have about 3 weeks before the serious cold and snow arrive. They've never built houses before. Most of them are city people from England. They don't know what they're doing. You're assigned to help build houses. The work is backbreaking. You're cutting trees with handsaws and axes, stripping bark, cutting logs to length, hauling them to the building site. Every day, dawn to dusk, freezing cold, hands covered in blisters and cuts. The houses you're building are crude, basically one-room cabins with dirt floors, no windows, glass is too precious, and thatched roofs that leak. They're drafty and cold, and barely better than being outside. By December, the cold is serious. You're talking temperatures below freezing, snow, ice storms. Your house, if you can call it that, has a fireplace, but you have to constantly gather firewood to keep it going. If the fire goes out at night, you might freeze to death in your sleep. Food is already running low. The supplies from the ship are almost gone. Hunting is difficult. The game is scarce in winter, and you're not a skilled hunter. Fishing is nearly impossible in the frozen waters. People are getting sick. Scurvy from lack of vitamin C, pneumonia from the cold and damp, dysentery from contaminated water, typhus, tuberculosis. The death rate is staggering. By the end of winter, 45 of the 102 original passengers are dead, nearly half. You attend funeral after funeral, burying people in the frozen ground, trying not to think about whether you'll be next. Chapter 31. Relations with Native Americans. Here's something they don't emphasize in the Thanksgiving mythology. The relationship between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans is complicated, tense, and frequently violent. The Wampanoag people who live in this area have been devastated by European diseases. Smallpox, introduced by earlier European explorers, has killed about 90% of the coastal Native American population in the years before the Pilgrims arrived. You're literally building your colony on the mass grave of the Wampanoag civilization. The few Wampanoag survivors are understandably wary of more Europeans showing up, but they're also practical. They've been weakened by disease and conflict with other tribes, and they see potential value in an alliance with the English. Squanto, the famous Native American who helps the Pilgrims, has his own complicated history. He was kidnapped by English explorers years earlier, sold into slavery in Spain, escaped, made it to England, and finally returned home to find his entire village dead from disease. His help to the Pilgrims isn't pure altruism, it's political maneuvering in a complex situation. The Wampanoag teach you how to grow corn, where to fish, how to hunt local game. Without this help, you'd all be dead. The famous First Thanksgiving is really a harvest celebration and political alliance ceremony, not the friendly dinner party of mythology. But tensions are constant. There are misunderstandings over property rights. Europeans believe in land ownership. Native Americans don't have the same concept. There are cultural conflicts. There's the ever-present threat of violence, and you know how this story ends. Within a few generations, the Europeans will have taken all the Native American land, killed most of them with disease and warfare, and destroyed their civilization. You're participating in the beginning of a genocide. Even if you don't fully understand, that's what's happening. Chapter 32. Daily Life in Plymouth. Let's talk about what daily life actually looks like once the colony is somewhat established. You wake up at dawn because you have no artificial light and can't afford to waste daylight. Your house is freezing because the fire went out during the night. You relight it if you have flint and tinder. If not, you have to walk to a neighbor's house and get an ember. Breakfast is porridge made from cornmeal. That's it. Maybe some dried berries if you have them. You're hungry all the time because the colony is always on the edge of starvation. Then you work. Depending on the season, spring, planting crops, repairing buildings damaged by winter. Summer, tending crops, hunting, fishing, preserving food. Fall, harvesting, preparing for winter. Winter, cutting firewood, maintaining shelter, trying not to freeze or starve. The work never stops. There are no weekends except Sunday, which is for church, and church is mandatory. It's 3 to 4 hours of intense Puritan preaching about sin and damnation. If you skip church or fall asleep during the sermon, you can be punished. Women's work is equally hard. Your wife is responsible for cooking over an open fire, from scratch everything, making clothes, spinning thread, weaving cloth, sewing, all by hand, preserving food, smoking meat, drying vegetables, churning butter, caring for children who are constantly sick or dying, making soap, candles, and other necessities, helping in the fields during planting and harvest. Children work too. Your 6-year-old is gathering firewood, fetching water, and helping with chores. Your 10-year-old is working in the fields alongside you. There's no childhood, no play, no school, just work. Chapter 33. The diseases of colonial life. Colonial America is a disease factory. Let's talk about all the fun ways you're going to get sick and possibly die. Smallpox, extremely contagious, 30% mortality rate, leaves survivors horribly scarred. Epidemics sweep through colonies regularly. Malaria, transmitted by mosquitoes, causes recurring fevers and chills. Chronic malaria weakens you over time and makes you vulnerable to other diseases. Yellow fever, another mosquito-borne disease, causes fever, jaundice, turning yellow, and bleeding from every orifice. About 50% mortality in epidemics. Dysentery, the bloody flux, severe diarrhea with blood and mucus. Kills through dehydration. Extremely common due to contaminated water. Typhoid, from contaminated water and food. High fever, weakness, abdominal pain, and distinctive rose-colored spots on the chest. Kills about 20% without treatment. Diphtheria, creates a thick membrane in your throat that suffocates you. particularly deadly for children. Whooping, cough. Causes such severe coughing fits that children can literally cough themselves to death. Measles, highly contagious, particularly deadly for Native Americans who have no immunity. Scarlet fever, strep infection that causes a distinctive rash and can lead to heart damage or death. Childbirth, not a disease, but one of the leading causes of death for women. About 1 in 8 women die in childbirth or from childbirth-related complications. There's no real medical treatment for any of this. The doctor, if there even is one, will bleed you, purge you, or give you toxic substances like mercury or arsenic. You're literally better off with no treatment. Chapter 34: Why You Wouldn't Survive. Colonial America, personal reality check time again. You'd starve. Colonial food production is incredibly inefficient. You're used to supermarkets with unlimited food. Here, you're constantly on the edge of starvation, especially in winter. One bad harvest means death. You'd freeze. You're not prepared for winter without central heating, proper insulation, or adequate clothing. The cold would literally kill you. You'd die of disease. Your immune system hasn't encountered most colonial era diseases. Smallpox, typhoid, dysentery. You'd catch something within weeks and probably die. You can't do the work. Colonial life requires skills you don't have. Can you grow food from scratch? Hunt and clean game. Preserve meat without refrigeration. Build a house with hand tools? No. Then you're useless and you'll die. You'd violate Puritan law. The Puritans have strict laws about behavior, dress, religion, and morality. You'd violate them constantly without even realizing it. Punishments include public humiliation in the stocks, whipping, or expulsion from the colony, which equals death. You can't handle the isolation. There's no internet, no phones, no mail service. Not reliable anyway. No contact with the outside world for months at a time. The psychological isolation would destroy you. You'd go insane from boredom. There's no entertainment. No books. You probably can't read anyway. No music. Puritans forbid most music. No sports, no hobbies. Just work, church, sleep. Forever. You'd snap under the religious pressure. The Puritan religious culture is oppressive. Constant guilt, constant surveillance for sin, constant fear of damnation. If you're not a devout Puritan, you'd be ostracized or expelled. Part 5. The Trenches of WWI, 1916. Chapter 35. Welcome to the Somme. Let's jump forward to World War I, specifically July 1916, the Battle of the Somme. You're a British soldier in the trenches of the Western Front. This is a different kind of hell. This is industrial-scale slaughter. You're standing in a trench that's about 7 feet deep and 3 feet wide. The walls are reinforced with sandbags and wooden planks, but they're constantly collapsing. The floor is duck boards, wooden slats over mud. And the mud. Oh God, the mud. It's not regular mud. It's a mixture of clay soil, water from constant rain, human waste, decomposing bodies, and chemical contamination from artillery. It's waist deep in places. It's thick like cement, and it sucks at your boots with every step. Men drown in this mud. Seriously. They fall in a shell crater, can't get out, and slowly sink under the surface, while their friends watch helplessly. The mud is strong enough that it takes multiple men to pull someone out, and sometimes they can't. You've been in this trench for 3 weeks. You haven't bathed, changed clothes, or had a decent meal. You're covered in lice. Everyone is covered in lice. You can hear them crunching when soldiers run their fingers along the seams of their uniforms. The smell is beyond description. It's rotting bodies. There are corpses in no man's land that can't be recovered. Human waste. Latrines are just pits that overflow when it rains. Poison gas residue, cordite from explosions, and gangrene from infected wounds. The noise is constant. Artillery shells screaming overhead, exploding in the distance or sometimes very close. Machine gun fire, rifle shots, screaming, always screaming. Chapter 36, Trench Life. Let me describe a typical day in the trenches, because it's a nightmare from start to finish. Stand to at dawn. Everyone has to stand on the fire step, a ledge in the trench wall, with weapons ready from an hour before dawn to an hour after. This is when attacks are most likely. You stand there, exhausted, cold, wet, watching no man's land for any sign of movement. Breakfast. If you're lucky, it's tea and hard. Biscuits. The tea is made from water boiled in old gas cans, so it tastes like gasoline. The biscuits are so hard they're called tooth dullers. Sometimes there's bacon or canned beef, but it's usually rancid. Morning routine. After stand to, you're supposed to clean your rifle, inspect your gas mask, and repair any trench damage from overnight shelling. But mostly you just try to sleep while standing up or sitting in the mud because you're so exhausted. Trench maintenance. You spend hours filling sandbags, repairing collapsed sections of trench, and pumping out water. It's endless. The trenches are constantly deteriorating and have to be constantly maintained. Lunch. More hard biscuits, maybe some canned stew that's gone bad, water that tastes terrible. Afternoon, more maintenance work. Or maybe you're assigned to a working party to bring supplies up to the front line. This means carrying heavy loads through communication trenches while being shelled. Dinner. Same as every other meal. Barely edible canned food, hard biscuits, terrible tea or water. Stand to at dusk, same as morning. Everyone on high alert from an hour before sunset to an hour after. Night. This is when the real work happens. Under cover of darkness, parties go out into no man's land to repair barbed wire, recover wounded or dead, or patrol. This is terrifying because German patrols are doing the same thing, and encounters usually mean close quarters combat with knives and clubs. Sleep. If you're not on sentry duty or a working party, you try to sleep, but the rats keep you awake. Rats as big as cats, feeding on corpses and garbage, crawling over you while you try to sleep. And the lice, and the cold, and the constant distant rumble of artillery. You might get 2 or 3 hours of broken sleep on a good night. Chapter 37. Going over the top. The whistles blow. It's time. You're going over the top, climbing out of the trench, and advancing across no man's land toward the German trenches. This is mass suicide, and everyone knows it. No man's land is a lunar landscape of shell craters, mud, barbed wire, and corpses. Some of the corpses have been there for months. You have to step on them or around them as you advance. You're carrying about 60 pounds of equipment: rifle, ammunition, grenades, entrenching tool, gas mask, rations, water. It's heavy and awkward, and you're trying to run through mud while wearing it. The German machine guns open up. You hear the bullets zipping past, hitting the men around you with sounds like someone punching a wet sack. Men are dropping everywhere, shot, blown apart by artillery, disappearing into shell craters. You keep going because stopping means you die anyway. The officers are behind you with pistols, ready to shoot anyone who retreats. It's death in front of you or death behind you, so you go forward. You make it maybe 50 yards before a shell explodes nearby. The concussion throws you into a crater. Your ears are ringing. You can't hear anything. You're covered in mud and what might be pieces of the man who is next to you. You lie in the crater for hours, occasionally working up the courage to look over the edge. Every time you do, machine gun fire forces you back down. Other wounded men are crawling into the crater. One is missing his legs and screaming for his mother. Another has his guts hanging out and is trying to push them back in. You use your field dressing on your own wound. You've got shrapnel in your leg, and you didn't even notice until now because of the adrenaline. The dressing is basically just a bandage with no real medical supplies. You tie it around your leg and hope it doesn't get infected. Night falls. You're still in the crater. The attack failed. Thousands of men died for no gain whatsoever. This happens every day. Chapter 38. Medical care, or lack thereof. Eventually, stretcher bearers find you and carry you. Back to a casualty clearing station behind the lines. This is where you discover that WWI medical care, while better than previous eras, is still a nightmare. The clearing station is overwhelmed. There are hundreds of wounded men and only a few doctors and nurses. You wait for hours, while men around you die from their wounds. When a doctor finally sees you, he's been working for 20 hours straight. His uniform is covered in blood. He looks at your leg, says clean wound, you're lucky, gives you a tetanus shot, and sends you on. Others aren't so lucky. You see a man with his face blown off. His entire jaw is just gone. The doctor can't do anything for him. He'll survive, but will be hideously disfigured for life, unable to eat or speak properly. You see amputations being done with handsaws, the patient biting on a leather strap because there's not enough anesthesia for everyone. You hear the screaming. You see men with gas injuries, their lungs destroyed by chlorine or mustard, gas, drowning in their own fluids, suffocating slowly over days. There's no treatment, they just die in agony. You see men with shell shock, what we now call PTSD. They're shaking uncontrollably, unable to speak, staring at nothing. The treatment is often just to send them back to the front, where they'll get killed because they can't function. Your leg wound gets infected despite the field dressing. This is common. Wounds get contaminated with the filthy mud of the trenches, leading to gangrene. If it gets bad enough, they'll amputate without anesthesia. Chapter 39, the psychological destruction. Let's talk about what WWI does to your mind, because the psychological trauma is almost worse than the physical danger. You watch your friends die in horrible ways. You see things no human should see. Men blown to pieces, men burning alive from flamethrowers, men choking on poison gas, men drowning in mud. You live in constant fear. You never know when a shell is going to land, directly in your trench, and obliterate everyone. You never know when a sniper is going to shoot you through the head. You never know when you'll be ordered over the top into machine gun fire. The fear becomes so constant that it stops feeling like fear and becomes your baseline state. You're just numb, emotionally dead. This is shell shock. You develop tics and tremors you can't control. Your hands shake all the time. You can't sleep without nightmares. Loud noises make you panic. You're constantly on edge, constantly expecting death. And the worst part? The officers and high command don't understand or care. They think shell shock is cowardice. Men with severe PTSD are court-martialed and sometimes executed for cowardice when they literally can't function anymore. You're expected to just endure, be brave, do your duty, die if necessary, and definitely don't complain about the psychological torture of living in a trench for months while your friends are systematically slaughtered, fleeing around you. Chapter 40. Why you wouldn't last in WWI Final Personal Reality Check. You'd break mentally immediately. Modern people aren't conditioned for the psychological trauma of industrial warfare. The constant shelling, the horrific deaths, the absolute helplessness. You'd have a complete mental breakdown within days. You'd die in the first attack. Going over the top requires either incredible courage or complete resignation to death. You have neither. You'd freeze, get shot by your own officers for cowardice or panic, and get killed immediately. You couldn't handle the conditions. The cold, wet, filthy trenches would break you down physically within weeks. The lice, the rats, the lack of sleep, the terrible food, you'd get sick and die. You'd die of disease, trench foot, where your feet literally rot from being constantly wet. Trench fever, dysentery, pneumonia. WWI kills as many people through disease as through combat. You'd get gassed. Poison gas is terrifying. Your gas mask might not work properly. Even if it does, you can't fight effectively while wearing it. And some gases, like mustard gas, get through clothes and burn your skin. You'd die of wounds. Even minor wounds often become infected and kill you because antibiotics haven't been invented yet. A simple cut can become gangrene and require amputation or lead to death. You can't handle the futility. WWI is characterized by pointless attacks that gain a few yards of ground at the cost of thousands of lives. The psychological impact of knowing you're dying for nothing would destroy you. You're not physically tough enough. Soldiers in WW. I endure hardships that would hospitalize modern people. You're soft by comparison. You wouldn't last. Chapter 41. What we've learned. So here we are, at the end of our journey through history's nightmares. You've experienced the industrial horror of Victorian London, the plague-ridden nightmare of medieval Europe, the disease and deprivation of ancient Rome, the starvation and cold of colonial America, the industrial slaughter of WWI trenches. And the verdict is clear. You wouldn't last a single day in any of these time periods. None of us would. We've become soft, not in a bad way, in a profoundly privileged way. We've been shielded from the suffering that was normal for most of human history. And that's actually wonderful. Think about what you have that people in every one of these eras would consider miraculous. Clean water. You turn a tap, and clean. Safe water comes out. No cholera, no typhoid, no parasites. This alone would save millions of lives throughout history. Antibiotics. A simple cut doesn't mean death. Bacterial infections are annoying, not fatal. This is magical to anyone before 1928. Modern medicine, childbirth doesn't kill 1 in 8 women. Childhood diseases don't kill half of all children. Surgery is done with anesthesia and sterile. Instruments. We can cure or manage diseases that were death sentences for thousands of years. Food security. You can go to a store and buy food, any kind of food, anytime. You're not going to starve because the harvest failed. This is unprecedented in human history. Temperature control. You have heating in winter and cooling in summer. You're not going to freeze to death in your sleep or die of heat stroke. This level of comfort would be unimaginable to our ancestors. Sanitation. You have a toilet that flushes away waste to treatment plants. You're not throwing your sewage out the window or sharing a communal privy with 40 families. This prevents countless diseases. Education. You can read. Most people throughout history couldn't. You have access to more information in your pocket than the greatest libraries of the ancient world contained. Safety. You're unlikely to die from violence, workplace accidents, or war. Violence has decreased dramatically over human history, even though it doesn't feel like it. Leisure time. You have free time. You can pursue hobbies, entertainment, relaxation. For most of human history, life was just work until you died. The concept of retirement would be incomprehensible. Life expectancy. You're probably going to live into your 70s or 80s. Throughout most of history, average life expectancy was 30 to 40 years. You're living twice as long in much better health. Chapter 42. The cost of progress. But this comfort came at a cost. Every modern convenience you enjoy was built on the suffering of people in the past. The Industrial Revolution that eventually gave us modern technology, it crushed millions of workers like the ones we described in Victorian London. Children died in factories so we could have cheap goods. The colonial expansion that spread European technology around the world. It destroyed entire civilizations, killed millions of indigenous people, and created systems of exploitation that still affect us today. The medical advances we benefit from. Some came from deeply unethical experiments, exploitation of vulnerable populations, and profiteering from human suffering. The food security we enjoy, it's built on industrial agriculture that may not be sustainable, and it's distributed so unequally that people still starve while we waste food. We stand on a mountain of bones. Every generation that came before us suffered so we could have it easier, and most of them had no choice in the matter. They didn't sacrifice for our benefit, they just suffered and died, and happened to advance human knowledge or technology incrementally in the process. Chapter 43. What this means for you. So what's the point of all this? Why did I just spend 20,000 words describing historical suffering in graphic detail? Perspective. When you're stressed about your Wi-Fi being slow, or your coffee order being wrong. Remember that people in the past would trade places with you in a heartbeat. Your bad day would be an incomprehensibly good day for most people throughout history. This doesn't mean your problems aren't real. They are to you in your context. But perspective helps. Gratitude helps. Humility. You're not tougher, smarter, or more capable than people in the past. You've just been born into a better situation. If you'd been born in 1850, London or medieval France, or ancient Rome, you'd be just as miserable as everyone else. Success in modern life doesn't make you superior to people who struggled in the past. You won the lottery of birth timing. Be humble about it. Responsibility. You've been given an incredible gift. Life in the modern world with all its comforts and opportunities. What are you doing with it? People in the past couldn't pursue their dreams because they were too busy surviving. You can, are you? People in the past couldn't get educated because knowledge wasn't accessible. You can learn anything, free from your phone. Are you? People in the past couldn't make a difference because they had no voice, no power, no resources. You have all three. Are you using them? Empathy. Understanding historical suffering should make you more empathetic to people who are suffering now. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. While you're living in unprecedented comfort, billions of people around the world are still living in conditions similar to what I've described. About 2 billion people don't have access to clean water. 800 million people are chronically hungry. Millions work in sweatshop conditions that would be familiar to Victorian factory workers. Slavery still exists. More people are enslaved today than at any point in history, just in different forms. The suffering hasn't ended. It's just been redistributed. You're not experiencing it, but someone is. Gratitude. This is the big one. Be grateful. Not in a toxic positivity. You can't complain because others have it worse. Way. But in a genuine appreciation for what you have way. You woke up today in a warm bed, in a safe place, with access to food and water, and medical care, and education and opportunity. That's a miracle by historical standards. Never forget it. Chapter 44. The final reality check. Let me end with one last thought experiment. Imagine you could go back in time to any of these eras with a time machine. You'd last maybe a few hours before you were desperate to come back. The smell alone would probably break you. The pain, the hunger, the fear, the discomfort. You'd be begging to return to your modern life. Now imagine you couldn't come back. Imagine you were stuck there. How long would you survive? Days? Weeks? Probably not long. This isn't an insult to you. It's a testament to how far we've come. Humans today are, in many ways, weaker than our ancestors. We can't survive the conditions they endured, but that's good. We shouldn't have to. The goal of civilization is to make life easier, safer, more comfortable. We've succeeded at that, at least for some people in some places. That's worth celebrating, but it's also worth remembering that this comfort is fragile. It depends on infrastructure that needs constant maintenance, social systems that need to be protected, scientific knowledge that needs to be preserved and advanced, economic systems that need to be fair enough to remain stable, environmental conditions that we're currently destroying. We could lose it all. Not all at once, but gradually. Climate change could make parts of the world unlivable. Economic collapse could destroy food distribution systems. Political instability could lead to war and destruction of infrastructure. Pandemics could kill millions and disrupt modern life. The comfort you enjoy isn't permanent or guaranteed. It has to be maintained, protected, and improved. Every generation has to choose to keep building or watch it fall apart. Chapter 45. Moving forward. So what do you do with this knowledge? Appreciate what you have. Don't take modern comforts for granted. Clean water from a tap is a miracle. Antibiotics are a miracle. Your heated home is a miracle. Feel the gratitude you should feel. Use your advantages. You have time, education, resources, and opportunities that people in the past would kill for. Don't waste them. Learn, create, grow, contribute. Help others. You've been lucky. Not everyone has been. Use your privilege to help people who are still living in the kinds of conditions I've described. There are millions of people who need clean water, food, medical care, education, safety. Protect progress. The systems that give you your comfortable life are under constant threat. Vote, advocate, support policies and politicians who will protect and improve them. Don't let them be destroyed by ignorance or greed. Remember history. The people in this video weren't characters in a story. They were real. They suffered, really suffered, in ways we can barely comprehend. Remember them. Honor their memory by not taking for granted what they never had. Build the future. Every generation has made life better for the next. What are you doing to continue that? How are you making the world better for people who come after you? You wouldn't last a day in the past, but you don't have to. You're here now, in the best time in human history to be alive. What are you going to do with that gift? The people of the past couldn't choose their circumstances. You can choose what you do with yours. Make it count. Chapter 46, The Spanish Flu, 1918. Disease meets modern civilization. Let's talk about something that should terrify you. What happens when a deadly pandemic hits the modern world? And I mean 1918 modern, not 2020 modern, because the Spanish flu of 1918 to 1919 killed more people than World War I, and it did it faster. You're living in Philadelphia, October 1918. The war is still going on, but something worse has arrived. A new strain of influenza that kills young, healthy people in their prime. Not the elderly or the very young like regular flu. This one specifically targets people aged 20 to 40 with strong immune systems. Here's what makes it so terrifying. Your immune system kills you. The virus triggers what's called a cytokine storm, where your immune system overreacts so violently that it destroys your own lungs. The stronger your immune system, the more likely you are to die. Being healthy and fit makes you more vulnerable, not less. The symptoms are horrific. You start with what seems like regular flu. Fever, body aches, fatigue. But then it gets worse, much worse. Your fever spikes to 104 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. You're so hot, you're delirious, hallucinating, not recognizing your own family. Your body aches so badly that moving is agony. Every muscle, every joint feels like it's being crushed. Then your lungs start filling with fluid. You're essentially drowning from the inside. You're coughing up blood. Not just flecks, but massive amounts. Some victims cough so hard they tear their throat muscles. Others cough up pieces of their own lung tissue. Your face turns blue from lack of oxygen, then purple, then almost black. This cyanosis is so severe that nurses can't tell white patients from black patients. Everyone is the same shade of dark purple-blue. You're bleeding from everywhere. Your nose, your ears, your eyes. Some patients bleed from their pores. The virus is destroying your blood vessels from the inside. And here's the worst part. This happens fast. You can be healthy in the morning and dead by evening. Some people die within hours of showing first symptoms. The average time from first symptom to death is 3 to 5 days. Chapter 47, Philadelphia's Nightmare. Philadelphia in October 1918 is hell on earth. The city made a catastrophic mistake. They held a massive war bonds parade on September 28th, bringing together 200,000 people in close contact. Within 72 hours, every hospital bed in the city was full. Within a week, thousands were dead. You're walking through the streets and it's apocalyptic. Bodies are piled on porches because there's no one to collect them. Families are too sick to bury their own dead, so corpses just sit in houses, rotting for days. The morgues are overflowing. The city has run out of coffins. Undertakers are working 24-hour shifts and still can't keep up. Mass graves are being dug in potter's fields. Entire families are wiped out. You pass a house where everyone inside is dead. Parents, children, even the pets died, because there was no one left to feed them. The house just sits there, door open, bodies inside, until someone eventually notices. Orphanages are overwhelmed with children whose parents died, but many of these children are sick too and will die within days. Some orphanages have a 90% mortality rate. The hospitals are nightmares. There aren't enough nurses or doctors. Many of them are overseas fighting in WWI. The ones who remain are working until they collapse, and then many of them catch the flu and die too. Hospital wards are packed with dying patients. Beds are so close together that you can reach out and touch the person next to you, who's probably dead or dying. The noise is unbearable. Constant coughing, moaning, crying, and death rattles. There's no treatment. None. Doctors try everything. Bloodletting. Yes, still. Aspirin in dangerously high doses. Experimental vaccines that don't work. Even injecting patients with their own blood. Nothing works. Some treatments actively make it worse. Aspirin overdoses cause internal bleeding, making the hemorrhaging from the flu even worse. Some of the deaths attributed to Spanish flu were actually aspirin poisoning. You watch a young woman in the bed next to yours literally drown in her own blood and fluid. She's coughing and choking and gasping, and there's nothing anyone can do. She dies after hours of agony, her face black from cyanosis, blood everywhere. This happens to patient after patient, hour after hour, day after day. Chapter 48. Social breakdown during the pandemic. Society is collapsing under the weight of death. Essential services are failing because too many workers are dead or dying. Trash isn't being collected because the sanitation workers are dead. Garbage piles up in the streets, attracting rats and creating even more disease hazards. Police forces are decimated. Crime is skyrocketing because criminals know there aren't enough healthy cops to stop them. Looting is common, especially of houses where everyone has died. Fire departments can't respond to all the calls because they're understaffed. Fires burn out of control, destroying entire blocks because there's no one to fight them. Telephone operators are dying, so phone service is sporadic. You can't call for help even if you need it. Communication systems are breaking down. Public transportation stops. Running. Trolley drivers, bus drivers, they're all dead or too sick to work. The city grinds to a halt. Schools are closed. Churches are closed. Theaters are closed. All public gatherings are banned. The city is under a de facto lockdown, but it's too late. The virus is already everywhere. People are terrified to leave their homes. They're terrified to help their neighbors, even people they've known for years, because getting close to anyone might mean death. Communities that were tight-knit become collections of isolated, terrified individuals. Families make horrible choices. Do you risk your life to help your sick neighbor? Do you take in your orphan nieces and nephews, knowing they might be infected? Do you attend your best friend's funeral and risk catching the disease? There's no right answer. Help someone, and you might die. Don't help, and you have to live with the guilt. Chapter 49. The economic devastation. The Spanish flu destroys the economy in ways that ripple for years afterward. Businesses close because all their workers are dead. Factories shut down. Supply chains collapse. Food becomes scarce because farmers are dying, and there's no one to harvest crops. What food exists is expensive because there aren't enough healthy people to transport it. Your job, assuming you're still alive and healthy enough to work, probably doesn't exist anymore. The company you worked for went bankrupt because 40% of their employees died. Even if you still have a job, you're probably not getting paid. Your employer doesn't have money because business has stopped. Banks are failing because of all the defaulted loans from dead borrowers. If you have money saved, it might not matter. Inflation is skyrocketing. The value of money is plummeting. Your life savings might not be enough to buy a week's worth of food. The war is still going on, draining resources. The government is spending money on the war effort, while the civilian population is dying by the thousands. Military needs come first. Civilian needs are secondary. War production continues even as workers die on the factory floor. Bodies are literally dragged out of munitions factories and replaced with new workers who will probably also be dead within a week. It's capitalism in crisis, colliding in the worst possible way. The economy needs workers to function, but the workers are dying faster than they can be replaced. Chapter 50, the psychological trauma. Let's talk about what this does to your mind, because the psychological impact of the Spanish flu is devastating and long-lasting. You're living through an event where death is random and omnipresent. Young, healthy people are dying, while some elderly and weak people survive. There's no pattern, no way to protect yourself, no way to predict who will live and who will die. This creates a sense of helplessness that's psychologically crushing. You can't fight the virus. You can't see it coming. You can't protect yourself or your loved ones. You're just waiting to see if you'll be next. Every symptom becomes terrifying. Is that headache the flu? Is that cough the beginning of the end? You're in a constant state of hypervigilance, monitoring your body for any sign of illness. You watch people die in horrible ways. Your friends, your family, your neighbors. They're dying in agony, drowning in their own blood, and you can't help them. The trauma of witnessing this over and over scars you permanently. The grief is overwhelming. In normal times, you'd have rituals, funerals, time to mourn. Now, people are dying so fast, there's no time for grief. You bury one family member, and two more are dying. You become numb to it because feeling the full weight of the loss would destroy you. Survivor's guilt is intense. Why did you survive when younger, healthier, better people died? What makes you special? Nothing. It's just random chance, which somehow makes it worse. The social isolation is crushing. You're avoiding other people to stay alive, but humans are social creatures. The loneliness, combined with the fear and grief, creates a perfect storm of psychological damage. PTSD is universal among survivors. For the rest of your life, you'll have flashbacks. You'll have nightmares about the pandemic. You'll panic when you get a fever or a cough. The trauma never fully goes away. And here's something dark. Some people just break. Suicide rates spike during the pandemic. People who've lost their entire family, who've watched everyone they love die horribly, who face a future alone in a devastated world. Some of them just can't take it anymore. Chapter 51, Why You Wouldn't Survive the Spanish Flu. Modern you dropped into the 1918 pandemic. You have no immunity. Your immune system has never encountered a virus like this. You're probably in the prime age range for death, 20s, 30s, or 40s. Your strong immune system will kill you via cytokine storm. You expect medical intervention. You're used to hospitals being able to save you. When you realize they can't do anything, literally nothing, the psychological shock would break you. You can't handle watching mass death. You've probably never seen someone die, let alone watched hundreds of people die horrible deaths. The trauma would destroy you mentally, even if you survived physically. You'd violate social distancing. Modern people are terrible at following pandemic protocols, as COVID-19 proved. In 1918, violating protocols means death, but you'd probably still do it because humans are social, and you'd convince yourself it'll be fine. You'd trust authority figures. Doctors and government officials in 1918 are confidently wrong about almost everything related to the flu. You'd follow their advice: bloodletting, high-dose aspirin, experimental treatments, and it would kill you. You can't handle the isolation. Months of lockdown, no social contact, watching your community die while you hide inside. You'd break psychologically long before the pandemic ended. You'd die of a secondary infection. Even if you survived the flu, the weakened state it leaves you in makes you vulnerable to bacterial pneumonia, which kills many flu survivors. And there are no antibiotics in 1918. You'd starve. With the economy collapsed and supply chains broken, getting food becomes difficult. You might survive the flu only to starve in the aftermath. Chapter 52, The Dust Bowl, 1930s. when nature tries to kill you. Let's move forward to the 1930s and drop you in the Great Plains during the Dust Bowl, because apparently we haven't tortured you enough. You're a farmer in Oklahoma, 1935. You've been farming this land for years, and it's been getting progressively worse. The topsoil is eroding because of poor farming practices and drought, but you have no choice. You have to keep farming to survive. Then the dust storms begin. These aren't gentle, dusty winds. These are massive walls of dust and dirt, sometimes a mile high, moving at 60+ miles per hour, turning day into night in seconds. You see it coming, a black wall on the horizon, approaching fast. You have maybe 15 minutes to get inside and seal every opening in your house. Every window, every door, every crack, stuff it with wet rags and hope it's enough. It's not enough. It's never enough. The dust gets inside anyway. It's so fine that it penetrates everything. You can taste it, feel it crunching between your teeth. It gets in your eyes, your nose, your lungs. You tie a wet cloth over your face to breathe, but you're still inhaling dust with every breath. The storm lasts for hours, sometimes days. You're trapped inside in pitch darkness. The dust blocks out the sun completely. You can't see your hand in front of your face. The static electricity from the dust is so intense that it shorts out electrical equipment and gives you shocks when you touch metal. When the storm finally passes, you open the door to find drifts of dust several feet high. Your car is buried, your fields are buried, your crops are destroyed. Again, you start shoveling dust out of your house. It's everywhere, inches deep on every surface, filling your cabinets, coating your food, in your bed, in your clothes. You shovel for days, and it never seems to end. Chapter 53, Living in the Dust. The Dust Bowl isn't just occasional storms. It's a constant state of environmental disaster that lasts for nearly a decade. Every day, dust is in the air. Every day, you're breathing it. Your lungs are slowly being destroyed by the fine silica particles. You develop what they call dust pneumonia. Your lungs fill with dust. You can't breathe properly. You cough constantly. You cough up black mucus. Children are dying of dust pneumonia. The elderly are dying. Even healthy adults are developing chronic respiratory problems that will plague them for life. There's no escape from the dust. You can't go outside without a mask. You can't open your windows. You have to cover your food while you eat, or it'll be coated with dust before you finish the meal. Cleaning is useless. You can sweep and dust your house 10 times a day, and it's still filthy. The dust keeps coming. It's Sisyphean, endless, pointless labor, just to maintain a barely livable environment. Your food is contaminated with dust. You eat it anyway because you have no choice. The grit crunches between your teeth. You're probably damaging your digestive system, but what else can you do? Starve. Water is scarce. The drought has been going on for years. Wells are running dry. What water you can get is often contaminated with dust. You drink it anyway. Your animals are dying. Cattle breathe in too much dust and die of pneumonia. They eat grass coated with dust and develop digestive problems. They're starving because there's nothing to graze on. The grass is dead, buried under dust. You find dead cattle lying in the fields, their stomachs full of dirt because they were so hungry they ate anything, including dust. Chapter 54, The Economic Desperation. This is happening during the Great Depression, which makes everything exponentially worse. You're not just dealing with environmental disaster, you're dealing with complete economic collapse. Your crops fail year after year. You're in debt to the bank for equipment, seeds, land. You can't pay the debt because you have no income. The bank forecloses on your farm. You're evicted from land. Your family has worked 4 generations. You have no money, no job prospects, no skills beyond farming, and farming is impossible. You can't feed your family. Your children are going hungry every day, becoming malnourished, developing health problems. You make the decision to leave. You pack up whatever you can carry, not much because you've sold almost everything to buy food, and join the thousands of other Okies heading west to California. You've heard there's work in California. Farming jobs, picking fruit, anything. It's probably not true, but what choice do you have? Stay and starve, or go and maybe find something. Chapter 55. The Migration West. You pile your family into a broken-down truck. It's barely running, and you have no money for repairs. You drive Route 66 west, joining a river of desperate migrants. The journey is brutal. Your truck breaks down constantly. You fix it with scavenged parts and prayers. You sleep on the side of the road. You eat whatever you can afford, which is almost nothing. Other migrants are hostile. Everyone's competing for the same scarce resources: water, camping spots, any available work along the route. Fights break out over nothing. You reach California after weeks of travel, and it's not what you expected. There are already thousands of migrants here. The farming jobs exist, but there are 10 people applying for every position. Wages are driven down to almost nothing. You end up in a migrant camp, basically a shanty town with no running water, no sanitation, no electricity. Families are living in tents or in their cars. Disease is rampant: typhoid, dysentery, tuberculosis spreading through the crowded camp. You take whatever work you can get, picking cotton for 15 cents an hour, working in conditions that are barely better than slavery. You're bent over in the hot sun for 12 hours a day, and at the end of the week, you've barely made enough to eat. Your children are working too. They have to. Child labor laws exist, but aren't enforced for migrant workers. Your 8-year-old is in the fields, picking alongside you, because otherwise the family starves. Chapter 56. The Social Stigma. You're not welcome in California. The locals call you Okie as a slur. You're treated as subhuman, dirty, lazy, stealing jobs from real Californians. Signs in store windows say no Okies. You're refused service at restaurants. Your children are bullied in school, called Dust Bowl trash. The police harass you constantly. There are actual border checkpoints at the California state line trying to turn away migrants. It's not legal, but they do it anyway. If you somehow get across, the police in farming towns will arrest you for vagrancy and run you out of town. You have no political power, no voice, no rights really. You're exploited by farm owners who know you're desperate. They pay below minimum wage because what are you going to do? Complain? They'll just fire you and hire one of the 100 other desperate people waiting for work. You're trapped in a cycle of poverty with no escape. You can't save money because you're barely making enough to eat. You can't go back. There's nothing to go back to. You can't move forward because you have no resources to improve your situation. Chapter 57. Why you wouldn't survive the Dust Bowl. Modern you in the 1930s. Dust Bowl. You'd die of dust pneumonia. Your modern lungs aren't. Conditioned for breathing dust constantly. You'd develop respiratory failure within months. You can't handle manual labor. 12-hour days of back-breaking agricultural work would destroy your body. You're not conditioned for it. You'd starve. You're used to abundant food. Surviving on minimal calories while doing hard labor, your body would break down from malnutrition. You have no survival skills. Can you fix a broken-down truck with scavenged parts? Can you find water in a drought? Can you identify which wild plants are edible? No? Then you'd die. You'd break psychologically, watching your children go hungry, losing everything you own, being treated as subhuman. The psychological toll would destroy you. You can't handle the uncertainty. No safety net, no social services, no guarantee of food or shelter. The constant precarity would drive you insane. You'd die of treatable illness, a simple infection, appendicitis, broken bone, things that are easily treated now would kill you because you have no access to health care and no money to pay for it. You'd give up. The sheer hopelessness of the situation would break your will to survive. Depression and despair would consume you. Ultimate conclusion. Chapter 58. The unifying theme you've now been through. Industrial Revolution. London, medieval Black Death, ancient Roman plague, colonial American starvation, WWI trenches, Spanish flu pandemic, Great Depression, Dust Bowl. Notice the pattern. Across all these eras, certain themes repeat. Disease kills indiscriminately. From plague to flu to contaminated water, disease is the greatest killer throughout history. Modern medicine and sanitation have saved more lives than any other advancement. Hunger is constant. Food insecurity is the norm throughout history. The ability to reliably feed everyone is a very recent development, and even now, it's not universal. Hard labor destroys bodies. Before, mechanization. Human bodies were tools that were used until they broke. Life was backbreaking labor from childhood until death. No one is safe. Kings died of plague alongside peasants. Rich and poor alike died in childbirth, from infections, from accidents. Privilege helped, but it didn't guarantee survival. Suffering was normal. Pain, hunger, fear, grief. These were everyday experiences, not exceptional ones. People lived with levels of suffering that would hospitalize modern people. Community was survival. You couldn't survive alone. You needed family, neighbors, community to make it through. Modern individualism would have been fatal. Progress is real. Each era we visited was better than the one before in some ways. Life slowly, gradually improved over centuries. Progress is real, even if it's uneven. Chapter 59. The final word. You wouldn't last a day in the past, but that's not a criticism, it's a celebration. You wouldn't last because you've been given an incredible gift. Life in an era where most of the terrors that haunted humanity for millennia have been conquered or controlled. You don't have to watch your children die of preventable diseases. You don't have to go hungry. You don't have to work until your body breaks. You don't have to die young. You don't have to live in constant fear. This is miraculous. Never forget it, but also never forget. This miracle is fragile. It requires constant work to maintain. It requires good systems, good governance, good science, good cooperation, and it's not universal. Right now, while you're reading this in comfort, millions of people are living in conditions similar to what we've described. They're dying of preventable diseases, starving, working in dangerous conditions, suffering. The past isn't really past. It's still present for too many people. So what do you do with this knowledge? Be grateful. Be humble. Be helpful. Be protective of progress. Be active in making things better. You've been given a gift that billions of people throughout history never had. A chance at a good life. Don't waste it.